Hi, I'm David Alderton, editor of Practical Reptile Keeping magazine, and I'd like to share some thoughts with you in this video about how to house a young tortoise. This is the most popular design of tortoise housing on the market today for young animals. It's known as a tortoise table, and you can buy this type of design in most reptile stores quite easily, and they come in a flat pack form that you can simply assemble at home. You have a choice of colours in terms of the finish, so that you can go with a lighter one or a darker one. This one's a medium colour, and you can either have them freestanding, buying just the table and position that on a chest, or you can opt for a stand as well. What we have at this end of the tortoise table is a retreat for your pet, and it's really important to provide this simply because young tortoises by nature are shy. They're very vulnerable in the wild to predators. This is an easy way of being able to both reach your pet and clean thoroughly in here when you need to. Here are just some of the increasing number of reptile substrates available in specialist stores and larger pet chains that you can obtain today as a lining for your tortoise table. The actual choice of substrate is really down to the type of tortoise that you're keeping. Some are more suited for the Mediterranean type, as you can see there, whereas others are more applicable for tortoises coming from drier areas. So, you just tip the substrate over the floor of the tortoise table like this, tip it all in there. What we're looking for is a covering of about 2 inches for a young tortoise. Although tortoises do like to burrow into this, so something that is a bit deeper is no bad thing. There we go, that's got that all in. And level it off as much as you can, and obviously you don't forget to put it in the shelter area there. There we go. Let's keep it moist. These are specially formulated so that they won't cause any harm if some of this gets stuck to the tortoise's food and swallowed. Things like play sand are really potentially very dangerous for tortoises because they can cause blockages in the digestive system if it sticks to the food the tortoise is eating. The other great thing about using this type of substrate, not only does it allow the tortoise to burrow into it and display its natural behaviour, but also it's easy to spot clean. You can just get a cat litter scoop and clean it up when it gets dirty. So once we've got the floor covering in place, the other thing to think about is how we're going to lay out the decor within the enclosure. 2 key elements obviously are a food bowl and a water bowl for your pet. Key thing is they must be easy to clean, whether it's the food dish or the water dish, because they're going to need to be scrubbed out and kept clean for your pet. But there are some differences in design that you might want to think about depending on how much space your tortoise has in the enclosure. Here, for example, is one that fits very nicely against one of the sides, fits snugly there against the side, whereas of course that one is a much more irregular shape, and so it doesn't really fit tidily out of the way, if you like, within the enclosure. This is a particularly useful design with the 90-degree angle there, simply because that takes up the space in a corner, which isn't an area that your tortoise is going to really spend a lot of time. They tend to like to wander around, so it's better to give them an uncluttered floor space if you can. It's a good idea to think probably about including a different tortoise cave for your pet out in this open part of the enclosure as well, relatively close to the heat source. And there are a range of different sizes. If you have a very big tortoise, you may indeed want to get something like this, but you can get scaled down versions of these that will fit very comfortably on a tortoise table. But this would look great if you're starting with an older rescue tortoise and you want something as a retreat for your pet in your garden. Heating and lighting for the tortoise table is a lot easier now than it used to be, thanks to the development of advanced lighting systems. What you need to do is to check the pack, because there are different elements within the lighting system that you need to consider. As far as heat is concerned, that's IR, infrared. That's the warmth that comes from the sun that we feel on our backs. The ultraviolet light is another part of the lighting spectrum, and that is also key for us and for tortoises, simply because it helps with the UVA to stimulate the tortoise's appetite, and the UVB serves to ensure that the calcium in the tortoise's diet is being metabolized correctly, and that's achieved by the UVB falling on the tortoise's skin and creating vitamin D3. So the other thing to consider is the wattage, and that is the power obviously of the light, and that's going to be influenced partly by the size of the enclosure you want to heat and also the background temperature within the room. They're good for about a year in terms of their UVB output, which is the critical aspect. Be prepared to replace these lights every year, and some manufacturers you can just log on and put the date that you acquired the light, and then they'll text you after a year and tell you that it's about time you changed it. So that's a really useful service. Just screw that in. This particular unit is called a reflector. It will direct the rays from the bulb down onto your tortoise. Then, in terms of the setup for the light itself, from a practical point of view, make sure your tortoise table is near a power point, because you will need to have that suspended so that it can be connected very easily to a power point and put in place like that. In terms of the temperature, you're looking to get down here a temperature of about 32 to 35 degrees Celsius, and then obviously it will fall back the further you go away from the light, so that over that side it should be down in the low 20s. You don't want it going down below the low 20s. How do you regulate the temperature? That's done by means of a thermostat. This is an all-in-one light, so it makes it very easy with this sort of lamp to maintain both the UV and also the heat needs of your tortoise. The combined combi lamp is definitely the easiest solution when you're setting up a relatively small tortoise table. The final piece of equipment that you need to fix to the reflector, once the bulb's been screwed inside, is this heat shield. Now we're going to sort out the temperature control using the dimming thermostat here. The dimming thermostat works to regulate the light, which is obviously the heat source in this case, and we've preset that to the basking temperature of the young tortoise, and we have this particular aspect that we need to fix within the tortoise enclosure. This is a temperature probe that will feed back to the unit and tell it whether it needs to up the power or down the power, and thus increase the temperature or reduce it. The other piece of equipment you need when it comes to the heating system is to have a thermometer. You've probably already got a room thermometer, but the point is with this that you can actually monitor the basking spot and the temperature across the enclosure, which is so important for tortoises to enable them to thermoregulate, to adjust their own position according to their body temperature and requirements.